Success is not won on spreadsheets. It is not carved from cold equations or summoned by sterile intellect alone. The world is not moved by the most rational voice in the room. It is moved by the one who understands people, the one who understands the undercurrent of emotion behind every decision, every hesitation, every unspoken fear. You may convince someone with facts, but you inspire them with feeling. You win hearts not by being the smartest, but by being the most human. Our world rewards the tactician, the planner, the one with the perfect resume. But the rooms where real influence happens, those rooms don't care about your credentials. They care about your presence. They care about whether you can read the energy before anyone speaks, whether you can listen beneath the words, whether you can soothe someone's storm without uttering a single solution. This is the invisible power. Emotional intelligence is not a soft skill. It is a survival skill. It is the cornerstone of true leadership. Because people don't follow titles, they follow trust. They follow those who make them feel seen. And feeling seen is the rarest gift in a world obsessed with shouting. Never trust the people who tell you other people's secrets. They are not loyal to truth, only to proximity. They are not sharing, they are selling access. And emotional intelligence teaches you that not all vulnerability is trust, and not all silence is peace. It teaches you how to discern the tremble behind the smile. It teaches you to hear the apology that pride refuses to say. There are men with 3 degrees who cannot manage their own tempers. Women who lead companies but cannot sit still with themselves. There are minds that can split atoms but cannot mend a broken heart. Logic without emotional mastery is a sword with no handle. It cuts everything, even the hand that wields it. Dale Carnegie understood this. He understood that the key to influence is not domination, it is empathy. He wrote, "You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you." The secret to leadership, to sales, to relationships, to life is this: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Success hugs you in private. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in the moment you de-escalated a conflict instead of fueling it. It whispers in the background when someone walks away from you feeling lighter, simply because you didn't try to fix them, you just understood. This is what builds reputation, not noise, not self-promotion. Depth. Emotional intelligence is knowing when to speak and when silence will say more. It's knowing how to say no without guilt. It's learning that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, that the loudest person in the room is often the most insecure, that behind every anger is fear, behind every boast is longing, behind every cold shoulder is a wounded child hoping to be safe enough to open again. And it is only when you stop reacting and start responding that life begins to open for you. Our thoughts make us what we are, but emotions shape the thoughts that take root. A thought soaked in resentment becomes a belief. A belief fueled by insecurity becomes a habit. And a habit without awareness becomes your life. So if you want to master your destiny, master your reactions. When they insult, you pause. When they ignore, you observe. When they try to provoke, you breathe. Because not every fire deserves your fuel, and not every criticism requires your correction. Maturity is realizing that someone else's chaos doesn't have to become your crisis. Only you can bring peace to yourself. No achievement can give it. No applause can sustain it. You cannot outsource your emotional balance and expect inner peace. You must build it yourself, moment by unglamorous moment, by choosing not to mirror dysfunction, but to transmute it. The person who succeeds in life is not the one who avoids conflict, but the one who knows how to face it without becoming it, who can navigate difficult conversations with grace instead of armor, who knows how to validate someone's experience without compromising their own truth. This is the edge. The real edge, not intelligence, not logic, but self-awareness. You can conquer a market and still lose yourself. You can win the argument and lose the connection. You can impress the world and still feel hollow when you go home at night. Because success is not about having power. It's about holding power without letting it rot your soul. And so you learn, emotional intelligence is not just about being nice. It's about being wise. It's about knowing what to say when someone is drowning in their own fear. It's about resisting the urge to prove a point when you know the other person isn't ready to hear it. It's about understanding that not every truth needs to be spoken, and not every silence is weakness. It is the art of saying, I see you, I hear you, I don't need to control you. Success is not a solo performance, is a symphony of silent alignments. The harmony between your head and your heart, between action and intention, between discipline and compassion, between detachment and care. And you must learn this. Emotional intelligence will cost you. It will cost you the right to lash out when you're triggered. It will cost you the comfort of blame. It will cost you the luxury of being reactive. Because to be emotionally intelligent is to be conscious. And consciousness demands responsibility. But in return, you gain power. Power that doesn't scream. Power that doesn't flinch. Power that doesn't need to prove itself to feel real. No matter what happens, always be yourself. But be the highest version of yourself. Not the one that was shaped by fear. Not the one that was built on survival. But the one who is awake. The one who knows that success is not about the results, it's about the resonance. The energy you leave behind in a room. The clarity of your presence. The calm you bring to storms. The dignity with which you carry yourself when no one is watching. And when the world tries to measure you by what you produce, you remember, the greatest wealth is your ability to regulate your nervous system. The greatest status is your ability to love without losing yourself. The greatest intelligence is not what you know, it's how you treat people when you have nothing to gain. Because emotional intelligence is not a trait, it is a practice, a choice, a way of being. And once you choose it, you stop chasing success in the world and begin embodying it. And when you become that, nothing can take it away from you. Nothing can take it away from you, not failure, not rejection, not misunderstanding. Because it is no longer something you perform, it is who you are. Emotional intelligence, once internalized, becomes your resting state, your compass, the silent guardian of your dignity. You no longer need to force outcomes because your presence already carries weight. You no longer strive to be impressive because your stillness commands more respect than noise ever could. You begin to understand that every room you enter is shaped not by what you say, but by how you see. Do you see the fear behind their anger? Do you see the fatigue behind their sarcasm? Do you see the quiet plea behind their arrogance? Most people walk through life blind to others because they are too consumed by their own internal storms. But you, when you develop emotional intelligence, you slow down. You notice. You become the kind of person whose attention heals. And that is the rarest kind of success. Because people will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did. But they will never forget how you made them feel. And emotional intelligence is the architecture of that feeling. It is the blueprint of every lasting relationship, the unseen magic behind every great leader, every teacher, every soul who walks through life as a light instead of a weapon. But make no mistake, it is not easy. Emotional intelligence will ask you to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. It will demand that you stay when your instinct is to withdraw, that you breathe when your reflex is to bite back, that you understand when your pride would rather condemn. It is not softness. It is strength refined into awareness. And the more you refine it, the more you'll see how different your world becomes. Arguments lose their gravity. Insults lose their sting. You no longer personalize what has nothing to do with you. You recognize that when someone lashes out, they are projecting their inner war onto the nearest mirror, and you are no longer a surface that reflects back chaos. You are calm water. You are unmoved, not because you don't care, but because you've trained yourself to respond, not react. This is the quiet power that builds empires not of concrete and capital, but of character. Empires made of trust, of influence that lasts because it's built on integrity, not manipulation, because it's fueled by connection, not coercion. And connection, that is the true currency of life. Not likes, not status, but real connection. And that only comes when you are emotionally fluent, when you know how to speak the language of feeling without drowning in it. When you can hold space without absorbing pain. When you can lead without controlling, guide without forcing, love without clinging. It is then that success becomes effortless, not because it is easy, but because you have stopped resisting the deeper work. You have stopped chasing shortcuts and started walking the long, honest road inward. You are no longer interested in being impressive. You are committed to being authentic. And authenticity, emotional truth, without performance, is magnetic. The world senses it. People trust it. Opportunities find it. Because people are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to congruence, to those whose words, actions, and energy match, to those who are the same in private as they are in public, to those who can hold power without arrogance and humility without weakness. This is the rarest success of all, to be trusted, because trust is not built in grand gestures. It is built in moments. The moment you listen without interrupting, the moment you admit when you're wrong, the moment you choose compassion over control, the moment you stay calm in the storm and say, I see you. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to understand. Those moments shape destiny. You want to be influential? Learn how to read a room. Learn how to read a soul. Learn how to read your own emotional weather before it storms onto others. Self-awareness is the foundation. Emotional regulation is the roof. And empathy is the open window that lets light in. You want to be powerful? Learn how to sit with another human being in their pain without shrinking, without judging, without needing to rush to the solution. Learn how to say, I'm here, and actually be there. Learn how to hold yourself in grace when your ego wants to defend, attack, explain. Learn how to let go of the need to always be right so you can instead become real. Because the truth is, people will give everything to those who make them feel safe, safe to be flawed, safe to speak truth, safe to evolve without shame. And emotional intelligence is what creates that safety. It is what separates the transactional from the transformational, the clever from the wise, the loud from the respected. And this is why success isn't about logic, because logic doesn't hold you at 2 a.m. when life falls apart. Logic doesn't heal wounds from words never spoken. Logic doesn't build loyalty in a team, trust in a partner, or depth in a friendship. Emotional intelligence does. It's what helps you know when to lean in, when to let go, when to speak, and when silence says more. It's what teaches you that your energy is contagious, and your presence is medicine or poison depending on how much work you've done to heal. So you make a decision right here, right now, to become the kind of person who walks into a room and makes people exhale, to become the kind of leader who listens more than they speak, to become the kind of soul who sees the world not as a battlefield, but as a classroom where every difficult person is a lesson, every emotion is a message, and every reaction is a test of how far you've come. You may not be able to control every outcome, but you can always control your response. And your response is your power. Your response is your legacy. Your response is your true success. Because in the end, what people will remember most is not how smart you were, not how wealthy you became, not how fast you climbed, but how deeply they felt understood in your presence. And that is what real success looks like. That is what real success looks like, not the applause of the crowd, but the quiet gratitude of a heart that felt seen in your presence. Not the headlines, not the trophies, not the metrics. They fade. They always fade. What endures is the emotional imprint you leave behind, the memory of how you made people feel safer to be themselves, the echo of a moment where your calm softened their chaos, the silent strength of knowing that when things fell apart, you didn't. Emotional intelligence becomes the bridge between your inner mastery and the world's response. Without it, your intelligence remains sharp, but disconnected, cutting, but not comforting. With it, your intelligence becomes service. You stop trying to be the smartest in the room and start becoming the most useful, the most stabilizing, the most attuned. Because when people feel safe with you, they open, they trust, they collaborate, they elevate. It's why some leaders walk into a room and you feel smaller, more tense, more guarded. But others walk in and the entire room exhales. You can feel it in your bones. They carry no need to prove, no need to dominate. They are present, and in their presence, you feel like your best self is welcome to rise. That is not logic. That is emotional resonance. It cannot be faked. It cannot be taught in a manual. It must be lived. And to live it, you must be willing to do the hardest thing. Feel everything you've been avoiding. The anger you silence, the sadness you suppress, the fear you bury beneath ambition. Because what you do not feel, you cannot master. What you deny in yourself, you will judge in others. And what you refuse to face will continue to own you, no matter how successful you appear. Emotional intelligence begins with emotional honesty. Can you sit with your jealousy without letting it speak as criticism? Can you sit with your insecurity without performing to hide it? Can you admit, in the mirror of your own soul, I don't need more logic, I need more grace? This is the moment your evolution begins. You become the person who no longer reacts impulsively to every emotional wave. You breathe before speaking. You think before correcting. You sense when someone's silence is not distance, but overwhelm. You learn to say, I hear you, even when you don't agree. Because you are not here to be right, you are here to be effective. And effectiveness in this life has less to do with precision and more to do with perception. The one who perceives correctly leads, teaches, heals. The one who feels deeply but is not ruled by emotion creates safety. The one who can step outside their own story to see the pain behind someone else's behavior becomes irreplaceable. That is emotional genius. And genius, in its highest form, is compassion applied with clarity. It is no longer enough to be brilliant. Brilliance is abundant. What the world is starving for is wisdom, the kind that whispers when others shout, the kind that observes before reacting, the kind that asks, what does this person need to feel whole in this moment? Instead of, how do I win this? Because every conversation is an opportunity to build or to break, to disarm or to dominate, to invite truth or to protect ego. And the one who has mastered emotional intelligence never trades clarity for control. You don't need to raise your voice when your energy already speaks. You don't need to outwit others when your empathy disarms their defenses. You don't need to be aggressive when your groundedness already commands the room. And the irony? The more emotionally intelligent you become, the less you take things personally. Not because you don't feel, but because you understand. You understand that people are projecting. that pain speaks in strange dialects, that most rudeness is rooted in fear, that most arrogance is a shield for inadequacy. And when you see this, you respond not with attack, but with intention. You stop being offended by things that aren't yours to carry. You stop trying to fix what you didn't break. You stop seeking apologies from those incapable of giving them. And instead, you lead quietly, steadily, compassionately, from the inside out. Because now you know, the greatest leader is the one who has learned to lead themselves through storms of emotion, through temptations of ego, through the noise of the world's praise and criticism alike. You become unshakable not because you are numb, but because you are anchored in self-awareness, anchored in emotional discipline, anchored in the wisdom that no one else controls your internal weather. And from this place, success finds you not because you chase it, but because you embody the frequency that attracts it. People follow calm. They gravitate to groundedness. They open to those who listen more than they speak. And when they open, the world opens with them. This is the new power, not control, but connection. Not persuasion, but presence. Not manipulation, but mastery. And when you master this, you become the kind of person people trust with their truth. You become the one they remember when the noise dies down. You become the calm in the chaos, the light in the fog, the steady hand in a world addicted to reaction. That is not logic. That is not taught in textbooks. That is not measured in IQ. That is the quiet fire of emotional intelligence. And once it burns within you, you will never again seek success from the outside, because you will be the success. Because you will be the success, not a title, not a role, not a number on a screen, but a living example of what it means to lead a life of depth, dignity, and presence. You will no longer chase validation because your worth is no longer up for debate. You won't need to outshine anyone because your light is not competing, it is illuminating. And those who step into your presence will feel the difference, even if they can't explain it. They will sense the peace that follows a person who has done the inner work. And you will carry that peace into every room, not with perfection, but with intention. Not by being the loudest voice, but the clearest. Not by demanding attention, but by commanding it quietly, steadily, with the gravity of someone who doesn't need to prove who they are. You begin to see that the most successful people are not those who conquer others, but those who have conquered themselves. Their triggers, their pride, their defensiveness, their thirst for constant recognition. Because until you master your inner world, you will always be at the mercy of your environment. One negative comment ruins your day. One rejection derails your purpose. One betrayal turns your love into bitterness. But with emotional intelligence, those storms lose their power over you. You see them, you feel them, but they do not drown you. That is power, the kind that doesn't crumble when the applause stops, the kind that doesn't collapse when someone walks away, the kind that stands firm when life removes what you thought you couldn't live without and you realize you are still whole. Because emotional intelligence teaches you the most sacred truth of all. Your peace is your responsibility. No one else is coming to rescue you from your triggers. No one else is here to regulate your nervous system. No one else is obligated to walk on eggshells so you can feel safe. That's your job. And the day you take full ownership of that job is the day you become free. Free from resentment, free from blame, free from the endless loop of trying to change people who refuse to change themselves. You stop begging others to be different. You stop waiting for closure. You stop chasing apologies from people still imprisoned in their own pain. Instead, you accept. Not as surrender, not as defeat, but as clarity. You accept who people are. You accept how they show up. You accept what they are capable of and what they're not. And then, with calm and certainty, you decide what you will allow into your sacred space. You become emotionally discerning. You start to protect your energy like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. You no longer allow drama to enter through open doors. You no longer keep toxic people close out of guilt. You no longer confuse history with alignment. You evolve, and your evolution is quiet. It's not an announcement. It's not a performance. It's felt. People feel your boundaries in your energy before you speak. They feel your growth in your detachment. They feel your maturity in your silence. They feel your presence in your refusal to engage in chaos. This is the new success. Not how much you accumulate, not how loud your life is, but how deeply you live in alignment with your peace. And the more emotionally intelligent you become, the more your definition of success shifts. No longer is it about being known by many. It's about being deeply known by a few. No longer is it about being right. It's about being effective. No longer is it about having the last word. It's about knowing when to walk away without saying anything at all. Because silence, when anchored in self-awareness, is louder than any argument. You stop entering battles that require you to sacrifice your peace just to win. You stop proving your point to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop explaining your worth to those who benefit from your confusion. Instead, you live your truth. You embody your worth. You move like someone who no longer negotiates their value. And people feel it. They feel your calm in their chaos. They feel your clarity in their confusion. They feel your groundedness in their instability. Because your success is no longer a concept, it's a frequency. And it cannot be faked. It cannot be copied. It is earned through the quiet and sacred work of inner mastery. So you no longer chase success. You become it. You walk it. You breathe it. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. This is the quiet revolution, not built on force, but on awareness, not powered by ego, but by presence, not fueled by strategy, but by soul. Because the future doesn't belong to those who know the most. It belongs to those who feel the deepest and still choose wisdom. It belongs to those who can be in the storm and still be the calm. It belongs to those who lead not just with their mind, but with their heart in harmony. And when you become that person, not just smart, but whole, the world bends toward you, not because you demanded it, but because your emotional gravity made it inevitable. Because your emotional gravity made it inevitable, silent magnetism that cannot be bought, borrowed, or broken. It's the force that draws people not to your appearance, not to your accomplishments, but to your presence. You are no longer trying to convince anyone of your value. You radiate it. You carry it in the way you breathe, in the way you listen, in the way you pause before responding. It lives in the way you hold space, not just for others, but for yourself. You are no longer triggered by small minds and loud voices. You are no longer destabilized by those who misunderstand your calm for weakness, because you know now that stillness is not the absence of power, it is its purest form. The more you master your emotional state, the less the world can move you, not because you're numb, but because you've become anchored. You don't sink with every wave. You rise with them. You don't break every time something doesn't go your way. You bend with grace and snap back with purpose. This is emotional intelligence, not suppressing your feelings, but transcending the need to be ruled by them. You can feel disappointment without becoming bitter. You can feel anger without becoming cruel. You can feel fear without abandoning your faith, because you no longer become the emotion, you witness it. You study it. You let it speak without letting it steer. And in that space between stimulus and response, you find your freedom. That space is everything. That pause before you reply, That breath before you escalate, that moment of silence before you defend your ego. In that sacred pause, you reclaim your life. You become the author again. You stop being a character, reacting to everyone else's script. You start creating, leading, guiding, centering, and everything begins to shift. The people who once triggered you lose their power. The chaos that used to shake you now teaches you. The conflict that once destroyed you becomes your refinement. Because you've stopped avoiding growth and started embracing it. You learn to bless the hard conversations. You learn to honor the people who stretch you. You even learn to thank the heartbreaks for they forced you to meet parts of yourself you would have otherwise ignored. And what do you find there, in those hidden places? You find gold. You find the gentle truth that you are more than what the world says about you. You are more than what they did to you. You are more than your mistakes, your titles, your wins or losses. You are a soul learning to feel without drowning, to speak without attacking, to lead without dominating. And that is what makes you invincible. Not because you'll never fall, but because you know how to rise. Not because you never hurt, but because you don't let pain turn you into someone you're not. Not because you're emotionless, but because you've befriended your emotions. You've turned your pain into wisdom, your insecurity into awareness, your silence into strategy, your solitude into strength. You've learned that being understood is a gift, not a requirement. That walking away is strength, not failure. That protecting your peace is an act of love and not selfishness. This is the new standard. This is the new success. Not the one shaped by external applause, but the one forged in internal alignment. And when people look at you, they'll feel something they can't explain. They'll say, "You're different." They'll say you glow. They'll say your energy is calm, clear, powerful. But you'll know the truth. You earned it. You bled for it. You sat in the dark and chose to build light. You listened to your emotions without letting them drive. You stopped reacting and started responding. You stopped surviving and started living. And now, you don't just walk through life, you lead it. Not by force, not by charisma, but by emotional clarity, by the decision to feel everything and still choose love, by the decision to see everyone and still choose peace, by the decision to know yourself and still choose growth. This is emotional intelligence, not a trend, not a technique, but a way of being. And once you choose it, once you live it, once you become it, you'll never need to chase success again, because you'll realize you are the success, and nothing can take that from you.